Pilsen neighborhood of Chicago. My name is Elliot Bergman. I play in a band with my sister and some of my friends called Wild Belle, and we're here in my home studio. We did a lot of our new record, Dreamland, here, and we did it all over the place. We started off working in Jamaica and kind of came back here. We went to Nashville for a few weeks and worked with Pat Carney. We were up in Toronto working with Doc McKinney for a while, and then we kind of finished the record out in LA. But everything kind of came back here, and we did a lot of the sort of additional recording here. We did a really cool string session with Matt Ullery doing the arrangements, and Natalie cut a lot of the vocals here. A lot of the songs got written here and were kind of conceived of here. So the record really kind of feels like it took shape in this space, and then, you know, we had all these kind of satellite operations. And we like being here just because, you know, kind of the instruments that inspire us and the stuff that's fun is here. And, you know, you can kind of like go to a studio in another town and they might have like mics and preamps and they'll have a beautiful Neve console, but just being at home is comfortable, you know, and it's hard to kind of like lug a B3 around with you. And, you know, on the one hand, it can be great to go and be in a studio and be really focused, and things ease up a little bit when you're not kind of feeling like you're on the clock, or that the person who you're working with is kind of going like, are the lyrics done yet? You know, how about now? You know, I love recording, and I'm sort of still just learning about it, and so I make all kinds of mistakes. And my friend Warren DeFever used to tease me. I'd be like, what kind of preamp should I get, or what? You know, he'd say, none. Don't get it. If you have to plug in more than one thing, you probably won't record anything. So I definitely do like to have a simple setup, and I love instruments, and so I kind of tend towards those things. And a lot of the time, you'll find in sort of the more unusual kind of half-broken things that I'm drawn to, songs kind of pop out of there in unusual ways sometimes. And so I'm always kind of looking for those magical mistakes, you know, and the things that kind of point you in a little bit of a different direction, or kind of show you something that you weren't really expecting to see.
My heart's on fire. You light me up.
Yeah, having instruments around that inspire you is definitely one. I love that like a B3 organ and a Leslie is like always one of my favorite things to start writing on. And this new Mellotron too is really just like, you start playing it and it just feels like there's like songs in there. And so we got really into fuzz on this new record, and so we kind of like amassed sort of a small collection of fuzz pedals. And then we had the one I'm talking about is actually, we have a show tonight and it's getting fixed today, hopefully. It's a Schaller, it's like a 60s German fuzz. And then the super fuzz is one of my, this one is intense. It's not for everyday use, but I love the super fuzz. That Magnetone is really an incredible amp. It has a very unusual vibrato that people like. It's sort of like a pitch shifting vibrato, but the reverb on that amp is just beautiful. So that one's a really special amp, but I love small amps. I love like this Fender Champ and this little Ampeg Jet. And then, to be honest, this is a 65 Vibro Champ, and that we used probably like most of the guitar on the record was recorded through that amp. Actually, you know, all these guitars have kind of funny little stories. This one we got from Bob down at 312 Vintage in Chicago, which is a great store. There's just something about playing like a sort of short scale, like kind of junky guitar. It makes you want to do something sort of ratty and bluesy. And so this one, the riff for Cannonball just kind of popped right out of this guitar. And then you're always looking for sounds, and so you don't necessarily know where they're going to come from, and you have to sometimes kind of fabricate them yourself. But it's nice to have help from from all this stuff.
Is this some fucked up situation? I'm feeling like a mental patient. Tell me why my heart can't stop misbehaving.
I've been making a lot of these bronze bowls and bells lately. We just did these. We have a new song out called Throw Down Your Guns, and in the video for that song we ended up melting a bunch of guns and bullet casings, and so this is one of the bells that we made out of the bullet casings. That was kind of a fun and pretty daunting project, actually. I kind of dipped into the scrap metal underworld of Chicago. I kind of got started on the kalimbas. I was sort of just sort of drawn to these at a young age. I had one when I was a kid. I love things that kind of color the sound in a way that makes it a little bit unrecognizable. So, you know, they can end up sounding like a gamelan or steel drums or church bells or a fuzz guitar. But yeah, so these kind of have a sort of, you know, kind of church bellish sound. This is just square tube. This is just all stuff that I've kind of like assembled from my travels, and this is from a temple, and it's a temple bell from India. I think it's sort of like a harmonica. And it's blow and suck, it's a pretty amazing little thing. I found this at I found it at a pawn shop in Columbus, Ohio, I think. I always like to have a good mallet. You know, it's a good thing to have in the studio, just as sort of a scepter, you know, to establish your authority. As musicians, our work is to play, you know, and so kind of keeping that sort of like childlike energy around what you're doing can be really hard sometimes, especially in a high pressure situation. So something just like that where it's like, okay, let's just make a loop on a kalimba, you know, and what does this have to do with a pop song or anything really? Maybe nothing, but at least there's something there that you can kind of build upon, or just say, oh, I like this tempo. You know, like you have to decide on something, you know, and you have to say, okay, maybe this gives me maybe I want to dance to this, and then that's some energy to build upon. You're just always looking for things that inspire you, and then, you know, the things that you fall in love with will inherently kind of come through in your music, you know. And so when we're working on a record, or when we're working with sound, you know, what is the material? It could be, you know, it might just be your guitar, or it might just be, you know, it might be a kalimba, or it might be a bronze bell that you kind of like work on for a really long time. But it can also be distortion or reverb or delay, and all of those things are things that I love. So you try to love it, and you try to treat your subject matter lovingly, and you try to treat the audience with love too. And I try not to worry about where the inspiration comes from too much, but if you can stay excited, that's generally what excites other people, and that's kind of what we're hoping to do, is inspire somebody else to do something and keep ourselves inspired.